All right, so we got some information on Andy Ruiz, his next trainer. He had been kind of seeming like he was trying to connect with Canelo before the first and second Anthony Joshua fight. And it seemed like one of those friendships where one guy thinks that they're closer than the other guy. That's what it looked like to me. That's just my opinion. But there is something that's happening right now that would make you think there's a deeper connection. Andy Ruiz has announced that his new trainer is now Canelo's current trainer, which is Eddy Reynoso, also won Trainer of the Year. He gets rid of Manny Robles. I don't know, man. What do you think about this? I mean, I have my thoughts on it, but I want to know what you say about this switch and this announcement.
I mean, look, this is boxing, okay? And this type of stuff happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny you said I checked in on Manny Robles a couple days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Just see how he's doing. Checked in on him, coronavirus check-in.
Right.
See how we didn't talk boxing. Just, hey, how are you? How's your family? What you up to? And just well wishes. And look, fighters make changes when they lose.
Mm-hmm.
Some fighters accept that they were the problem and they make the change because they just feel like maybe the other person said something or did something that offended them, didn't have their back, and they make that change.
And sometimes they get rid of the snakes and they can't.
Sometimes, they just feel like they can't accept the loss, and that somehow by switching trainers, they're diverting the blame to the trainer, saying, well, there must have been something going on that it's the trainer. I'm like, this is my philosophy. Manny Robles is a heck of a trainer.
Yes.
So much so that Ruiz didn't beat Joshua on June 1st of last year with a lucky punch.
No.
He beat him by being in shape, being able to get off the canvas after being knocked down, capable of still implementing the game plan. He was a game in shape fighter. He did have a short camp because he was coming off of another fight. So that activity helped him. He didn't have enough time to get out of shape, and he did train, and they did come with a game plan, and he executed it. He won, and it was the biggest upset of the year and the biggest upset in quite some time.
Yeah, in heavyweight boxing.
Okay, maybe right up there with Tyson Douglas.
Yes.
Okay.
Close.
So the rematch. Manny Robles only said good things about Andy Ruiz always.
Until after.
Then Ruiz shows up out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't perform. I mean, look, he still made it through a 12-round fight.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua could not stop him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even believe he was knocked down in that fight.
No, he was hit solidly alive, but not.
All right, that was on December 7th. Didn't go down.
Yeah.
But the point that I'm making is, it seemed to me that Ruiz was out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
And then Robles sort of intimated, because he also has to protect himself, that Ruiz didn't take it seriously. I'm paraphrasing here. Didn't take it seriously and didn't put the best effort in preparing. Now, only the two of them know the truth about that.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, something has inspired Andrew Ruiz to now go where the grass is greener. And if you're going to do that, you're finding another Mexican trainer.
Right. And I was going to say that definitely seems like that's a factor.
Who happens to be the trainer of the year and the trainer of the biggest name in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, I'll say it again, Manny Robles, heck of a trainer.
Mm-hmm.
This is no reflection on him, in my opinion. This is just Andrew Ruiz living his life, making his decisions. It's his decision. And this is what he's choosing to do. He's choosing to switch things up, and he'll call this the comeback. And we'll see what happens the next time he fights.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going to validate this whole situation. If he shows up in the best shape of his life and puts on a performance against a top heavyweight, then we can say, well, you know what? Maybe this change of scenery has worked for him.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's the same Andy Ruiz that showed up in the Joshua rematch, then maybe it could be a discipline issue with Ruiz. But we also have to remember, Ruiz has been a really good heavyweight. Like I said in a previous show, the loss to Joe Parker can be disputed.
Yeah.
Which means the only loss of his career, if you really look at it, was the rematch, which he wasn't 100% Andy Ruiz.
Right. But this is obviously all on him is the reason why he wasn't. But
what I'm saying is him switching trainers sort of gives the impression with this narrative from him that maybe he's blaming his trainer as part of that. You follow me? You don't switch trainers if it's working and you can accept responsibility. Maybe he's pawning that off by making this change because I don't know, with the amount of professional fights that Andy Ruiz has had, you're not teaching him anything new. It's just a matter of getting him prepared to fight.
Yeah. What I think it is I do think that Manny Robles is kind of like the de facto scapegoat here, right? Because I don't necessarily think that he's saying, you cost me this, it's because of you. But when you make a change, that's what people are going to think, especially if, like you said, if you make a change,
it's
after
the aesthetics, right?
After a loss, right? I think Andy Ruiz was 300 pounds,
right,
when he showed up to fight Joshua.
Right.
He knows good and well that is not, you're not in condition to fight at a world-class level as heavy as you were. You weren't in optimal shape when you pulled the upset. I believe there were circumstances involved with that, on top of the fact that you were prepared, on top of the fact that you have some skill. But I don't think that Joshua was 100% himself going into that fight. I don't. But Robles prepared you and you got it done. And I think it could have been the worst thing in some ways, not obviously from a monetary standpoint, because Ruiz earned money that is insane. He got the second payday out of it. But from an overall standpoint, it could have been the worst thing that could have happened to Ruiz, because sometimes the worst thing that can happen to somebody is for you to get success without giving your best. Because when you experience success without giving 100%, it starts to make you believe that you can continue to do that and continue to get success. When in actuality, you won that fight, yes, because of your skill, and yes, because you had a trainer here that had you prepared, but you also fought a compromised guy more than likely.
Okay, but you gotta let me jump in here.
Okay.
I also think that that's diminishing the victory. And I think we don't know. Like we're just making assumptions based on stories that came out afterwards that could have been used by another fighter to justify a loss.
Of course, and I prefaced my point by saying that this is what I think.
Right.
That he was a compromised fighter.
Right.
So
but that was a narrative that was spun after the loss.
It was a narrative that was spun after the loss, but actually, no, the conversation started before the loss. There was something that came from Anthony Joshua's dad that said that my son had been concussed during training camp, and that came out before the fight. So that was like the week of the fight, because I wrote a story for Forbes that said that people were questioning Anthony Joshua's mind state and mental state coming into the fight, and that was a part of that entire story. So that didn't start after the fight. That talk started before. And of course, it got validated because of what happened. But at any rate, either way, whether or not we have valid proof of that, that's not the point. The point is that that's what I believe based off of what I saw and how the fight actually transpired. Even forgetting all that, because it got me sidetracked a little bit over towards the point I was making. You had success in a situation. You cannot get past the fact that as a fighter, you have a responsibility to stay within a reasonable conditioning level. Andy Ruiz appears as though he's someone who is trying to skirt that responsibility. He's trying to avoid adopting some level of nutritional program that keeps him from blowing up to something that is just not optimal. It doesn't matter that because your hands are so fast and because you have solid footwork that, oh, I can sometimes make up for the fact that I'm chubby. The point of it is if you were in better shape, all of those skills would only be augmented. And it seems to me that he's trying to achieve through the poor conditioning as opposed to conditioning and then seeing what his best actually can be.
Brian, but I think that when we talk about Andy Ruiz, we have to realize, look at the baseline for him. The way he looks is not indicative of his conditioning. You understand? He's always been heavy.
I understand that, but it's just not logical to think that, see, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Just because he can perform well at the way he is, doesn't mean that he can't perform better.
But that just might be conditioning. But I don't know if he's in worse conditioning. He might be heavier, but I don't know if his conditioning is worse. On what
planet does
Brian? He's never been from day one.
As usual, you're missing the point. But what I'm saying to you is,
you're saying he has to look the part to be the part.
No, I'm not saying that.
But how do you know what his conditioning level was?
Here's the thing. Well, first of all, he was not nearly as busy in the second fight as he was in the first fight. Didn't throw nearly as many shots.
Guy fought 12 rounds with Anthony Joshua.
He even said himself, I was not in the best. I guess I could have lost a little more weight. You think?
Well, yeah, okay. You're like Captain Obvious now. We know this.
Exactly. So this is my point. So it is Captain Obvious.
But conditioning, that doesn't mean conditioning. Weight and conditioning are not related. Weight and conditioning are not related.
So you're telling
take it from me. I'm in the gym with these guys every day.
So I don't care whose gym you're in.
But listen. But you know what I'm saying. You're talking about weight and conditioning. They're two different things.
I'm talking about Andy Ruiz.
You're being 300 pounds. Not being conditioned.
So I'm telling you. So you're telling me that a 260-pound Andy Ruiz will not be a better conditioned athlete than a 300-pound Andy Ruiz. That's why. That's the whole point.
Could be. They could be equally conditioned.
Okay.
But he's just heavier. Okay. So he could have the same level of conditioning.
Manny Robles would
listen, it's no different, but it's just, you understand that it's no different than when a fighter thinks they needed to put on more weight to be more effective, right? Like when Deontay thought he needed to come in heavier. Remember, he wanted to come in heavier in the second. Does a heavier Deontay equal a less conditioned? It doesn't equate. In Andy Ruiz's state,
you could make the argument.
No, you don't know. But listen, there's too many other factors with Deontay. It's not even just about conditioning. It's about effectiveness. And then we're also talking about somebody who's going from Deontay Wilder is a thin heavyweight. Right. Listen, has Andy Ruiz ever been out of shape? Has Andy Ruiz ever looked in shape to you? Aesthetically, he's never looked in shape.
But you're okay.
But it doesn't affect his conditioning.
Open up the thought. Okay. Just because he has never looked that way does not mean that there is not a higher place for him to go.
How do you know?
So because it would seem to me
he's been fighting his whole life. He can't shake that. How do you know that's not who he is?
Shake it. He can't. So he's just meant to be overweight.
Maybe.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, what I'm saying is since 16 years old, nothing's really changed.
Right. His diet.
But how do you know? How do you know? How do you know?
He says it.
So how is Reynoso going to affect his diet?
Manny Robles literally said that it's what he wants.
But he's been doing it his whole career and in amateurs. So what I'm saying to you is, but he won that. Listen, no, I'm not, because how is Reynoso going to have how is that going to be different?
Who said that? I didn't say any of that. All I'm saying is if Andy Ruiz in shape, in better shape, would conceptually equate to somebody who is more effective with the same skills that he already has. It's insane that you're literally sitting up here making the argument that a heavy, overweight guy can come in and go, don't make any sense for me to lose weight and get in shape. I'm gonna be the same guy anyway.
Let me ask you something.
If a fighter told you that in your camp, you'd be like, dude, what?
Listen, I would look at the history of this person. And it's always been the case for Andy Ruiz. I'm not talking, this isn't somebody that was in what is considered right? To be standard, shredded, look the part, shape. Okay.
I'm not saying he got to be look like Deontay Wilder. That's not what I'm saying.
But what I'm saying is, look, we don't know. I mean, he still went 36 minutes with Joshua in the rematch and never hit the canvas.
That's because of
2020 something gifts. That could be because of conditioning, dude, as well.
No, that's because of his physical gifts and because of his overall toughness.
Wait, now his physical gifts.
Yes, he's quick. He has great feet. He has quick hands. He can.
But what would you say allows you to go 36 minutes in that environment, which name all the fighters that couldn't do that with Joshua? There is a level of strong conditioning that goes along with that. Look, we're going to do a whole show on round 2.
This is why I say you're missing the point. This is why I say that, because I am not saying that he does not have any conditioning. What I am saying is if he were in better shape, he could have better conditioning. He could be more effective.
Brian, this is a guy that leading into the fight had a Snickers bar as his Snickers bar was on his Twitter.
You repeating how many minutes he fought doesn't prove anything.
What was his photo on Twitter going into the first Joshua fight?
His what?
The photo on his Twitter going into the first. It was Snickers.
Proving my
point. Nothing. No, it's not. His effectiveness, his entire career has been the same.
I would love to see what Manny Robles is.
We'll get Manny on.
Yeah. And
we'll get Manny on.
If there's any,
I will eat crow if Manny suggests different. I'll eat crow.
A fork and a napkin, because it's gonna be some crow 8,
and vice versa.
No, it won't be, because this is an insane concept.
We're bringing Manny on strictly to argue this point.
Please, me and Manny connected in the lobby in LA anyway, so we both talked.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, we both talked about not wanting to go to Saudi Arabia because we were scared for how we're going to treat brown people. So, so we already connected. So he's going to be on my side.